Biden goes after MAGA Republicans who continue to be a roadblock, stopping every bit of legislation for partisan reasons. Biden also forgives student loans of $10,000 to Americans making less than $125,000 a year. Some people are losing their absolute minds. And also, the redacted affidavit has actually just been released today, according to Judge Reinhardt. What does it say in the redacted affidavit? Also, what is this beer of the week? All of this on this week's episodes of Current Events on Tap. And good evening, listeners, and welcome to another episode of Current Events on Tap with your host, Alex Kirsch, a podcast from the Alex Kirsch Project. Hey, that's me. Army retiree, truck driver, pragmatic progressive, podcaster, and sometimes a clout chaser, if I might saying. If this is your first time listening, please do me a solid, hit like and share and subscribe to my Spreaker, YouTube, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. This podcast gives you this week's current events, and I also do what I call the beer of the week. I pick one beer and review it based on these four categories: price, pour, aroma, taste, and then I give it an overall rating. Be sure to catch me every Friday at now 7 p.m. I've decided to go to 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Spreaker. Catch me at your earliest convenience on YouTube, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Just type in The Alex Kirsch Project, and there you will find this podcast. And now, without further ado, this week's Beer of the Week. Tonight's Beer of the Week hails from the country of Germany. Yes, I've lived in Germany myself. Loved Germany. I wish I could go back, honestly. It is also one of the oldest beer halls. This brewery is one of the oldest beer halls in Munich, or also properly pronounced of München, as it's properly pronounced. And the beer of the week is Hofrau Dunkel. Now, people would say, oh, is that a Dunkel? It's like, no, it's Dunkel is how it's pronounced, as far as I'm concerned. And that's what I've been told by other Germans. So, the brewery was founded in 1589, so we are talking old school style beer here, baby. And it was made by the Duke of Bavaria, Wilhelm V. It's one of the oldest, and once again, it's one of the oldest beer halls in Munich and throughout the entire country of Germany. Now, I've actually been to the Hofbrauhaus in Munich, and it's actually it seats up to like 5,000 people. It's a great place. If you're ever in Munich, I highly, highly suggest you go to this Hofbrauhaus, because I tell you, this is where you'll find the best beer in the entire world. Now, I drank a Hofbrauhaus original, but it wasn't during Oktoberfest, but it was in the days when I used to go to Munich by train, taking the Bahnhof. The food is absolutely spot on. It's delicious. The beer on tap is bar none a once-in-a-lifetime experience. I gotta say, I love beer that just comes out of a tap for some reason. There's something that really it's something that really accents the taste of it all. And one of these days, I'm actually going to talk to you about a product I actually bought that I saw on Shark Tank. It's called Physics. Basically what it is it actually is like a battery-powered beer tap that use frequencies or sound waves or something like that to actually produce the tap. It's a really cool invention. I'll have to share it with you sometime. However, let's go ahead and get back to the beer, though. The first Dunkel was believed to have been brewed in 1589, around the same time as when the brewery was first founded. The alcohol content is 5.5%. But without further ado, let's go right ahead and rate this delicious beer. The price is a 5 out of 5 easily. This is a beer that is affordable, but guess what? You really get the bang for your buck with this beer. It's a dark, delicious beer. I bought this six-pack, however, at Kern's Sausages in Frankenmuth, Michigan. But you can find these at your larger liquor stores. If you go over and look in the import beers aisle, and if you look to where you'll see all the German beers, like if you think like Heineken or Beck's or, Paul München or whatever, you'll see a Paulner, which is also a Munich beer. That's where you might find it. But if you look for Hofbrauhaus and then look for Hofbrau Dunkel, it's Dunkel, okay? It is available year-round, and its nationwide average is the stunning price of $10.52 on average. Absolutely phenomenal. The pour is another 5 out of 5. A beautiful pour with a beautiful head that just gives off that slight aroma, which I'll cover in a second. The dark brown that comes out, it gives off a very, very beautiful appeal. The pour is exquisite. Even in cold or room temperature, the beer, regardless if it's cold or at room temperature, it pours out just the same. Something that Germans are very good at is providing us with room temperature beer, meaning I always consider a beer that I can drink cold or at room temperature as a fantastic beer. That's how I rate it. The aroma is another 5 out of 5. Light toasted grains. It almost smells like that dark bread from a bakery that you go inside of and you just take that whiff. God, it just takes me back to the days when I used to go down to the bars in Vilseck and Nuremberg, and yes, even München. Even in Hamburg, I would go to places and I would say, Eins Bier bitte, which is the proper way of saying ask for one beer. You got to stick that thumb up in the air and say, Eins Bier bitte. And when I smell this beer, it just takes me back to those days when I traveled the world and I first discovered this magical beverage. And the taste. Oh, well, I would be remiss if I didn't take a taste right now of this delicious beer. Oh, man. 5 out of 5. Malty. The taste of caramel, the hops taste, and just enough bitterness just to counter the slight sweetness that you get inside. The bitterness and the sweetness just completely balances one another out. Now, I might prefer the original over the Dunkel, but I'm talking about Dunkel for today. It is truly one of the best tasting beers and dark beers in the world. It is so good, and it truly represents the country of Germany so well. This beer is without a doubt the bee's knees. Overall rating, well, it goes without saying, this is a 5 out of 5 top tier kind of beer. Truly phenomenal. This is how beer is meant to be made, to give your taste buds an absolute symphony, I tell you. Even if you don't like dark beers, you gotta give this beer a try. I'm telling you, you would love this beer. It is so good. It is perfection. Beer perfection, that is. Now, on to current events. So Biden gave a speech in Rockville, Maryland. He decided to really just hammer it home and go after the MAGA Republicans. Now, I want everybody to understand something, okay? This day and age, there are people out there that consider people like John McCain, who may rest in peace, or people that don't toe the line with Trump as rhinos, Republicans in name only. But here's what I found that's most interesting. Trump isn't even a real Republican. Now, what is the definition of a Republican? Now, you could say that the definition has changed over the years. You can even say that not all Republicans are the same as they used to be, which is true. However, Republicans insist that they are all about the conservative base. They're all about personal responsibility, personal accountability, limited government, the whole 9 yards. However, the Republican Party is starting to branch itself off in between two different, hierarchies, if you want to put it, or two different categories. You've got regular Republicans, and then you got MAGA Republicans. The MAGA Republicans have got to go. Why? Because they go against everything that this country was founded upon. They put all their love and loyalty into one person, and this is dangerous. This is the kind of stuff I don't want us to see. You should never, ever put your faith, and you should never, ever just say, well, I am a Republican because of this person. I am getting my endorsement because of one person. The entire Republican Party, like Laura Ingraham even said, even though Trump lost the 2020 election, which she insists that it was still somewhat stolen, she even said that Trump is still the face of the Republican Party. Normally, when a president leaves office, that's it. They go away. They disappear. They might, make appearances every now and then, which is fine if they make endorsements. But the thing is, though, Trump has just got these people locked in a vice grip that if you go against Trump, you pretty much are throwing your career away. You're going to get primaried. I talked about this last week in my last episode. But Biden mostly talked about what was at stake for November's elections. Now, I'm going to play some audio, okay? This came from Brian Tyler Cohen's channel on Low Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen, okay? So he gets full credit for this. I'm only going to play 4.5 minutes of this audio, so please feel free to listen. I'll be stopping every now and then to give my commentary on it.
What's happened is there are not many real Republicans anymore. By the way, your sitting governor, he's a Republican you can deal with. We disagree. No, I'm serious. But at least he's within the mainstream of the Republican Party.
He's talking about Republican Governor Larry Hogan. Okay, so I don't know enough about Larry Hogan. I know some people live in Maryland. They don't like the guy, which is fine. But Biden says that he can work with the guy. Biden has always been the kind of guy to reach across the aisle and work with people even if they disagree with him. That's why when John McCain passed away, he spoke at gave a eulogy saying that how he was such a close friend of his. They disagreed with each other a lot, but I tell you what, though, they would have each other's back because they didn't let politics get in the way of friendship.
I respect conservative Republicans. I don't respect these MAGA Republicans. And folks, everybody thinks I'm exaggerating when I say this, but they're coming after your Social Security as well. And you think I'm kidding, but I'm not joking. Think about this. Think about what they're doing. And it's all there in black and white. He wants to require Congress to vote on the future of Social Security every 5 years. So, every 5 years, Congress can vote to change, cut, reduce, or entirely eliminate Social Security. How does that make you feel? Do you want to put your Social Security in the hands of Ted Cruz and Marjorie Taylor Greene? I mean it.
Love it.
But it's not just Social Security. Senator Scott wants everything in the federal budget voted on de novo every 5 years it goes out of existence. That includes Medicare, veterans benefits, and everything else. And then along comes Senator Ron Johnson of Wisconsin. This is what they put this in writing now. This is their plan. He thinks 5 years is too long. I'm not joking. You think I'm making this up? He wants to put Social Security and Medicare on the chopping block every single year. You hear Republicans always talk about the deficit, right? About big spending Democrats. Well, guess what? When the last guy was president, he increased the debt by $2 trillion in tax cuts. Not a penny of it paid for, okay? Well, guess what we did? We reduced the deficit. The Inflation Reduction Act lowers the deficit by $300 billion over the next 10 years. And that's on top of the $350 billion I reduced the deficit last year and the $1.5 trillion reduced it this year. 2020, you and 81 million Americans voted to save our democracy. That's why Donald Trump isn't just a former president. He is a defeated former president.
But yet he still will not accept the results of the 2020 election. That's what's amazing. Trump has still not accepted the results. He will not admit that he lost because he is a sore frickin' loser. That's the kind of guy he is.
And it's not hyperbole. Now you need to vote to literally save democracy again. My friends, we offer a starkly different version and vision of this country, a vision of a better America that's within our reach, that's within our hands, if we just vote. If we elect 2 more senators, we keep the House and Democrats, we're going to get a lot of unfinished business we're going to get done. Folks, look, we'll codify Roe v. Wade. We'll ban assault weapons. We'll protect Social Security and Medicare. We'll pass universal pre-K. We'll restore the child care tax credit. We'll protect voting rights. We'll pass election reform and make sure no one ever has the opportunity to steal an election again.
Now, before people start freaking out and wondering, what does it mean by stealing an election again? There are people that have tried very hard to make voting damn near impossible for so many people. During the 2020 election, Greg Abbott had one drop box for the entire county of Harris County, Texas. Has anybody ever been to Texas? Do you have any idea how big Harris County, Texas is? I'm just going to do a quick Google search. How big is Harris County, Texas? Oh, sorry. 1,778 square miles. That's insane. That's an insane size. And there was only one drop box in the entire county. That's the things that they're talking about. People that are trying to steal the election. Trump even called Brett Raffensperger from Georgia to say, I need 11,000 votes. He wanted to steal the election. Not the Democrats. The Democrats didn't try to steal the election. You got people like Stacey Abrams, who was trying to educate people on how to get out there and vote. When they had to do a Senate runoff between Raphael Warnock and Jon Ossoff, between Raphael Warnock and, oh God, I can't even remember her name. I was in Georgia at the time, but it's just because like my memory's kind of going a little bit shot. But when Raphael Warnock and Jon Ossoff were going in their competitions for the election, they actually had it to where she was out there educating the populace, educating the people of Georgia on when to vote, how to vote, and where to go to vote. That's the way that you do things. You canvass. You educate people. That's how you get stuff done.
We're just 76 days away from the midterm election. 76 days. And to state the obvious, there's a lot at stake. So I want to be crystal clear about what's on the ballot this year. Your right to choose is on the ballot this year. The Social Security you paid for from the time you had a job is on the ballot. The safety of your kids from gun violence is on the ballot. And it's not hyperbole. The very survival of our planet is on the ballot. Your right to vote is on the ballot. Even the democracy. Are you ready to fight for these things now?
Good speech. I will definitely say that's a very good speech. Now, there's a few things that I definitely do have to fact check President Biden on. While it is true that since January of 2021, 9.5 million jobs have been added, many of these jobs were due to the American Rescue Plan, which was passed before Biden's presidency. Even if the American Rescue Plan did not pass, however, employment still could have risen up to 6.25 million jobs in 2021 and 1.74 million in 2022. Critics of this insist that this is just people just coming back to work, which, yeah, you could say that, but there's still naysayers out there that will insist that there are some people in this country that would rather just take a handout than go back to work. They don't have any data to back that up, though. At least I haven't seen it. So therefore, they can't verify this information. It's still, you got to give credit where credit is due. People need incentive to come back to work, especially if they feel that the work environment they're going back to, because they have to be able to have childcare, they got to be able to take care of their families, they got to be able to buy groceries, they got to be able to pay for gas. People don't just want to sit back and take a handout. If there are people that do that, they are such a small minority of the entire country. There are people out there that need to work. They have the desire, the strong will to work. So the concept of you trying to tell people that they are just lazy and want to get back to work is complete hyperbolic statements, and you've got no data to back it up with. We are, however, at 3.5% unemployment, which is astounding. I do not care who you are. When he took office, the unemployment rate is at 6.2% and has since then dropped to 1 year, 3.9%. And now we are back at pre-COVID levels. I don't care who you are. That's awesome. That's good. And unemployment's going to keep going down, especially ever since they passed the CHIPS Act. Once again, this is going to get us to compete with China on a technological level, because guess what? They're kicking our ass when it comes down to technology. We want to be able to compete against China. The CHIPS Act is going to create more private sector jobs in the semiconductor industry. Now, what does that mean for you? What does that mean for us? Semiconductors, for those not aware, are the most essential components for electronic devices, enabling advances in communications, computing, healthcare, military systems, transportation, clean energy, and countless other applications. We need jobs like that because it's a technological world out there. We need to be able to compete with the rest of the world, including China. Being competitive is the most important aspect in good business. That doesn't mean exploiting the workers and doesn't mean exploiting other people. It means giving good paying jobs. If you take care of your employees, you're going to get better benefits and you're going to get better production values out of it. It is just that simple. If we want to maintain our competitive edge over another superpower like China, we have to be able to invest more and continue to bring big businesses in like this. This was one of the biggest critiques of people, of us exporting jobs across overseas and whatnot. Yes, people would say, oh, well, it's just because the reason why people send so many jobs overseas is because that way so they are not getting taxed to death over here in this country. The tax rate in this country for big businesses is a joke. For those that have to continue to hike up prices because they say it's unfair, the fact of the matter is these big businesses can afford to pay the taxes without hiking up the prices on every little thing that they produce. They just like to use that as an excuse. But the CHIPS Act is a great thing. It's a great piece of legislation. It makes us competitive. It keeps us competitive. Because while everybody might have a little bit of criticism when it comes down to things like the Space Force, that is the next frontier as far as I'm concerned. That's the next frontier is outer space. Because while we may not take advantage of outer space, guess who will? Our competitors. Maybe not Russia, because Russia's got their own problems right now. But China, definitely. I would not put it past China for them to already have satellites that are better than ours or a space program that's better than ours. We have got to invest in things like this. And the CHIPS Act, the semiconductors, is so essential for us to make our things better. Now, I'm not an expert in this field. I'm going to be perfectly honest about that. But the reason why this is so good is, once again, it puts us on the same competitive level and probably will put us over the top over China in this regard. This is a great piece of legislation. But yet people out there are trying to fight against this. These MAGA Republicans that insist that they want to look out for the best interest of the country, but they're doing everything in their power to put a stop to things like this. Now, here's one of my favorite topics. People love to talk about inflation and gas prices. All right, well, okay. Let's talk about inflation and gas prices. I continue to maintain the position that the president has little to no effect on gas prices. That is influenced by the global crude market. There are 4 factors that influence the U.S. gas prices. The cost of crude oil, which is 54%, which is determined by supply and demand. Taxes, which is 16%. The national average is 57 cents per gallon, which California has the highest at 87 cents per gallon. Distribution and marketing, which is 16%. These vary based upon the retailers that you might see across the country. While some gas stations are owned and operated by the refineries they come out of, others, however, are independently owned. Like the mom and pop gas stations that you might actually see as you drive down the road that might sell Shell oil. They, however, only make money off of the concessions, not necessarily the gas. The refining costs, where half of the refining capacity for the U.S. is on the Gulf Coast. And once again, President Biden has brought up the fact that the war between Russia and Ukraine contributes to this. Now, why does Russia contribute to this? Where does Russia fit into this? Well, I'll answer that question. It's simply because oil and gas is a global commodity. When a country like Russia, which is also a producer of oil at 12%, is put on sanctions, the price of oil will go up across the world. And guess what? That's just how things operate. That's how things are in this world. Gas is up all over the world. The president has very, very little influence over this. Now, I will tell you this much. Based on what I've read, we are pumping more. We are pumping 60% more than we are last year, if I'm not mistaken. Could be wrong, but, I try to keep my ear to the ground, and I try to do this research on these topics before I try to tell you about these things. But it's true. We are pumping 60% more. There have been over 3,900 leases that the oil industry has access to. Now, there's not always a guarantee that when they start pumping out of those regions that they're going to get oil out of there. However, the fact that they have these permits that have been approved upon, this should mean the fact that they're drilling and pumping more oil by 60% tells you something. The supply and demand, the reason why gas prices were so low in 2020, it's not because of any brilliance of Donald Trump. It's because people were driving less. People were driving less because people weren't working more. People were working from home. People were told to social distance. People didn't go to the grocery store as often. That's where things like Instacart really came in, where people were masking up and whatnot. I mean, that's just kind of how the business was operating at the time. I'm not saying it's right, but I'm telling you that's exactly what happened. But this is how things work. Inflation is also up all across the world. Now, inflation is slowly but surely coming down. I'm seeing the gas prices come slowly but surely down. But gas prices have continued to drop for the past 70 days. But of course, you're not going to hear anybody give credit for that because you know what? Like I said, the president has very little impact on the gas economy. Of course, you're going to have the same people saying, oh, well, what about the Keystone Pipeline? What about the Keystone Pipeline? The Keystone Pipeline is in full operation. You keep talking about the Keystone XL pipeline. There's a difference there. The Keystone XL is not the Keystone Pipeline. That wasn't even going to have any real effect on our oil or gas prices to begin with. This is why people need to do their research on these topics. They can't just go off of the first source they hear. Trust, but verify. Like I tell everybody, trust, but verify. If I'm wrong, all you got to do is leave a comment and say, hey, Alex, you're wrong, and here's why. Don't just tell me I'm wrong and say, you're wrong because you voted for Biden, you're wrong because of your policies. No, I want you to tell me why I am wrong. I want people to tell me I'm wrong. It is that simple. Abortion and Social Security. Biden is 100% correct. There are people that are going after a woman's right to choose. Now, I was told that these are just fringe groups, right, that are going after a woman's right to choose. But no, these are people that are actually policy makers. These are people that are getting elected into offices. There are people that are running for elected positions in our government. In Michigan, Tudor Dixon, who's running for governor for the state of Michigan, endorsed by Trump. Even she has stated that there should be no exception for a woman to have an abortion, regardless of rape, incest, the welfare of the mother, what have you. This is dangerous, but she's not alone. She is just one of many people across the country that don't think a woman has a right to choose. Tudor Dixon has even indicated that a woman or a teenager who's been raped, that should be forced to give birth, she should just take this as a time to heal. She should look at the positive aspect of these things. I'm sorry, but there's no positive aspect to this. Yeah, you can tell me it's not the baby's fault. We're not saying it's the baby's fault. We're simply saying that a man or a rapist does not have more rights to impregnate any woman he comes across. He does not have more rights to impregnate her than she has the right to terminate that pregnancy. But Tudor Dixon does not believe that. It gets worse, though. Texas now has a trigger law, where it's now a felony, that any Texan who performs abortions can now face up to life in prison or a $100,000 fine. Wow. Yes, that's it. Texas once again leading the charge. They are trying to take a woman's right to choose. It's not like they're actually going to give a shit about these women or their rights. They don't care about rights. All they care about is one thing: control. This is not about protecting the lives of the innocent, because they could really give a damn. Those that are so against abortion, they don't care about those lives. If they did, they would also want to make sure that children's lives are protected in schools so they don't die in school shootings. They would also try to make sure that people are protected, have Social Security safety nets. They also want to make sure that children aren't going to go hungry in the state of Texas. But no, they don't care about these things. They consider these programs handouts. They consider this just, you need to pick yourself up by the bootstraps. It's unacceptable what's going on. And the fact of the matter is that this is just the start of things. It's bad enough that you had places like the state of Missouri where a guy gained access to women's menstrual cycles via an app. Women started deleting these apps to keep track of their menstrual cycles because they wanted to keep guys like him out of their business. But hey, we're talking about the party of personal responsibility, right? Limited government? This is not a limited government. They are coming after your right to choose. It is that simple. I'm not trying to scare you. It's already here. This is why it is so important for you to come out this November and vote these sons of bitches out of office, or ensure that they don't get into office in the first place. They are trying to take control of you. And I have the privilege, or not really a privilege, I've got no control over this, but me as a man, I don't have to worry about these things. I don't have to worry about a government to come by to tell me that I have to have a child. But a woman being told that she has no bodily autonomy, that she has no rights to her body whatsoever, that she has to have this baby. Even if the baby might die in the womb, she still has to carry to term. Unacceptable. Completely unacceptable. And honestly, we should all be worried about this. We should all be just completely just flabbergasted that people like this, that this is even a concept. It's not even for the right reasons. Again, they don't even care about the fetus itself. They just care about the one thing, and that is control. And now they are trying to inflict and threaten people with prison and monetary fines. Completely unacceptable. As far as what Biden was talking about, Rick Scott, it is true. Rick Scott of Florida wants to, what does he call it? He wants to sunset all federal legislation in 5 years on Social Security and Medicare. Thinking these things are going to go bankrupt. Now, I'm sorry. I'm no economist. I don't have a degree in this field. Hell, I don't even hardly... Whenever it comes down to talking the budget, that's between my wife and I, of course. But she's the one that usually runs the numbers because she's smarter than I am in this regard. But if you're going to tell me that these programs are going to go bankrupt after they show that they support those that are the most at risk, the people that cannot work anymore, that need those benefits, if you want to make some cuts, there are plenty of cuts to choose from. But that's not for me to decide. That's for you, the elected officials that we elect into office to decide these things. But you're choosing the wrong damn things to go after. You're going after the people that are most easily exploitable. This is the thing that sucks about this whole thing, about them wanting to cancel out Social Security. There are people, it's unacceptable that you should expect senior citizens who are already in retirement to come out of retirement to go back to work because you want to take away their damn benefits. Unacceptable, once again. Completely unacceptable. You want to make some changes? Here's a couple ideas. How about all of our elected officials stop giving themselves pay raises every couple of years? You already make six figures. You already have nice houses. Well, some of you, that is. Or, how about this? How about you cut from the military-industrial complex that we all seem to complain about? I'm not saying cut from the military. I'm saying the military-industrial complex. The billions of dollars we tend to give these defense contractors who waste this money frivolously, completely. It's unacceptable. Completely unacceptable. I see some of the conditions in which our soldiers are kept. I've lived in some of these conditions. And the fact of the matter is some of these guys drag their asses to get shit fixed inside of barracks. But hey, we got to make sure that we have some of the most top-of-the-line stuff that we're not even going to use ever in our entire career. If you want to make some cuts, have some checks and balances, find out who's wasting our money, and cut them out of the equation. I'm all about making sure that we have the edge in the military. But if these guys are failing us, then they need to get cut out like the cancer they usually tend to be. It's that simple. Some of these guys make a ridiculous amount of money and they don't produce jack diddly squat. Hey, how about this? How about we continue to stop giving tax cuts to the top 1%? They don't need those tax cuts. They're not going to pay their employees. AT&T, during the Trump tax cuts, cut 20% of their workforce, just so they could pay the rest of their workers a decent living wage. How does that make any sense? Can someone please lay out this logic for me? Now, I'm not going to try to tell a business what they should or should not do. I'm a firm believer in the strong beliefs of capitalism, but I don't believe in exploiting people for the work they put in, especially when they bust their asses for you. Hell no. But here's the thing. Rick Scott wants to target the average citizen. He wants to target you, the taxpayer. Social Security that you pay into, he wants to take that away from you. He wants to take away Medicare from you. He wants to take from you, but he doesn't want to take away from the people that don't need Social Security, that don't need Medicare. These people can afford the best top-of-the-line health care because they got the money for it. But you, the average American, some people struggle. I'm okay. I got TRICARE for the rest of my life, but I am not every average citizen. Some people are struggling. They need this medical coverage. They need this Social Security. To take this away from them is nothing short of unacceptable, and Rick Scott needs to just check himself before he wrecks himself. I could go into more detail about all the things that he said about what Biden said, but when he said that he is tired of these MAGA Republicans, you know what? Damn it, so am I. I'm tired of the MAGA Republicans that have no real platform. The only platform they have is the fact that Donald Trump has endorsed them. That is it. But they're not in this for the best of the country. They are only in it for themselves. That's why so many of them asked for a pardon after January 6th. They don't care about the country. They don't care about you. I'm not even saying that every elected official cares about the country as a whole, but the MAGA Republicans definitely don't care. They only care about one thing, and that's appeasing their God Emperor. And we have got to make sure that this November, you come out to the polls and make sure that these sons of bitches, once again, don't get put into office or are voted out of office. The next topic I'm talking about is the student loan debt cancellation. So, for those that have been living under a rock, or people that are not aware up to current events, Biden has canceled $10,000 of education debt for individual borrowers who make less than $125,000 a year, and couples who make less than $250,000 and $20,000 Pell Grant recipients. The loan repayment, however, for the rest of their balance is on hold until December. And of course, people are losing their ever-loving minds. They are losing their minds over this. They think it's completely out of control. They think what Biden is doing is just being an absolute dictator. They're saying that he is doing stuff that he should not be doing. Agree to disagree highly, all right? So I'm going to go over 3 of the many criticisms that people have as of right now about this. The first criticism by the Republican right is it's a bailout for the rich. I'm sorry. No, that is incorrect. That's what tax cuts do, actually. While many will insist that tax cuts benefit the entire working class, they don't. They actually help out the super wealthy. Tax cuts help them out so they can continue to pay their shareholders, so they can do stock buybacks, so they continue to enrich themselves, but not pay their people living wages. I used to think that they pay their fair share. They really don't. Some of these guys pay 0 income tax. Some of these guys pay 0 taxes. And you expect me to believe that they need more tax cuts? No, they don't. They don't need tax cuts. They need to be taxed. Definitely taxed. But this $10,000, loan repayment or loan forgiveness is good for every average American citizen that went and got an education. There's an argument to be made in regards to this predatory student loan system. Tuitions have grown 1,200% since 1980. Let me say that again. Tuitions have grown 1,200% since 1980. And universities seem to think that raising tuition while wages remain stagnant in some areas and getting prospective students to take out these predatory student loans is the way to go. I, however, heavily disagree. I tend to be a huge fan of entrepreneurs like Mark Cuban. There's a video out there on YouTube where Mark Cuban talks about the advice that he gives aspiring college students. The first thing that he says for you to do is find the cheapest community college that you can go to that's accredited, okay? Now, the reason why that's important is because he indicates about how you don't need to go to Harvard to get your introduction to writing. You can go to any accredited school that for like a tenth of the price, maybe, or half the price. I'm really bad with math. But you could do that for a lot cheaper, and it actually will help you out in the long run because guess what? An associate's degree from a community college that's accredited is just as good as an associate's degree from an Ivy League school. Yeah, it might not look as prominent, but it's still the same accreditation. You still have an associate's degree. I've got an associate's degree from University of Maryland Global Campus. It's still an education, and I'm still have an associate's degree. I can still move on to go get my bachelor's degree. And the reason why this is so important is that way you can get all your accreditations out of the way. That way you don't take out $40,000, $50,000, $60,000, $80,000, $100,000 worth of debt. Because nobody should be saddled with that amount of debt. To me, that is completely un-American. Forcing students to take out this much debt so they can get a good education is predatory. Should not be happening. My wife had to take out a student loan debt and almost took her 20 years to pay it off, honestly. This is predatory. And next, the reason why he says stuff like this is because if you've got a college that is trying to build a brand new building, like, for example, a school, a building of psychology, a building of business, stuff like that, then your university is in serious trouble financially. You don't need to build a brand new state-of-the-art building. Just put it inside of a classroom. Makes perfect sense to me, honestly. This is the way things need to be operated by. Students should educate themselves on what kind of a college they want to go to. I'm not saying they shouldn't go to Harvard. I'm not saying they can't go to University of Michigan or Auburn University where they want to be a veterinarian. I'm simply saying if you want to go to college, you should definitely go to a cheap community college that's accredited, so that way you can get your basic prerequisites out of the way. That way, when it's time for you to move on to the program you want to, you can even work part-time to keep paying your tuition. That way, if you do have to take out a student loan, you can then move on. You can then take out a student loan. It's not going to be nearly quite as much. I still think, however, that the student loan system is completely predatory. It takes less time to pay off a car, for crying out loud, a $50,000 car, than it does to pay off an education. To me, that seems kind of a little bass-ackwards. There's a lot of things that Mark Cuban says that makes a whole lot of sense. Because then when he was... So Mark Cuban was asked another question. What kind of advice would you give a college student that's getting ready to graduate from college? He says, well, first off, don't go off and look for the perfect job. Because even though, yes, the opportunity might arise, we might find a good, perfect job. Now, I'm paraphrasing here, so if he sees this or hears this, Mark, please forgive me. But he says, when you go to college, you go to college to learn. But when you get out there in the real world, you get paid to learn with different aspects of job experience, which I think is such an important aspect, and some people take that for granted. You don't have to go right into the field that you studied. Sometimes taking a job that may not be your most ideal job gives you job experience. It makes you look more appealing. Being paid to learn gives you better job experiences later on down the line. And I think that's a completely underrated idea of looking things. I think that's something that we need to focus more upon. I adopt this school of thought. I think it's a great school of thought, no pun intended. And I think more people could benefit from this idea. The next argument is it will lead to higher inflation. Right now, there's no proof that this is the case. We forgive banks and companies and major corporations all the time and still have not received some of these full payments back. Now, I went through a list, and it's a massive list, but I didn't want to read through them all one at a time, okay? But you can look this up on Google. Big businesses can afford to rake in massive profits, but don't pay us back, need to be held accountable. But helping our average citizen will, in fact, take a huge financial burden on their back. $10,000 may not seem like much to a big millionaire or billionaire, but to the average person, this could mean being able to pay rent on time, paying for groceries, daycare, what have you. This is a huge weight off of their shoulders. Yes, even if they took out a $30,000 college loan and they've only paid $5,000 that off, you knock $10,000 off of that. That's a huge weight off of their shoulders. They will then be able to financially plan better. It will help them budget and figure out what they can do next. This is a huge burden lifted off of their shoulders, and people need to understand this. This is a good thing for the American people as a whole, especially those that went to college, because you go to college for one thing and one thing only, to be a better citizen, to find a career that suits you best. And even if it's like a liberal arts degree, it's still a degree. Even if it's not a field that you're people are like, well, you got a liberal arts degree, but that means that you probably can broaden your horizons in that regard. But a college degree, to be educated, right? I'm not saying you need to be educated to be successful, but it sure helps. Because what people are not understanding is that college aren't these massive indoctrination places that indoctrinate people into a certain way of thinking. It's places where people can learn to better themselves. They find themselves surrounded by people of different thought, that have different ideas, different points of view. These are very important aspects that we can take in full account. So this is honestly not such a bad gig. But one of the third reasons is because people like Marjorie Taylor Greene insist this is an unfair system. Funny enough, though, she received a payment protection plan, also known as a PPP, when her business received a $183,000 loan. A company or corporation should not be treated like an individual. If a person receives a heavy student loan and the rates keep jumping up, it is harder for them to pay it. How is that fair? She's an elected congresswoman right now, and she gets paid in her six figures, and she has health care for life. Even if she is forced to resign, she is covered. Not every American has that luxury. Me, I have my college pretty much paid for, and I think this is great. We paid off my wife's student loans after we sold my house from Oregon, and guess what? We both agree this is good for the people. Just because we got ours does not mean that we can't ensure that other people get some relief taken off their backs. This is such a good thing for the American people. And no, this isn't socialism. Again, if you think this is socialism, you don't understand what socialism is. For crying out loud, it's killing me. Please, educate yourself on this. This is a good thing for the American people. You're asking who's going to pay for this? Well, guess what? Ask the people that we have bailed out, the big businesses that we have bailed out so many times that have not paid their debt in full. GM paid their debt in full. Other companies have not. So these are the questions we need to ask. If these big companies are not willing to pay back their debt that they owe the American government, while the American people always have to be saddled with the bill, then when are you going to actually have some level of, when are you not going to be such a hypocrite about this? It's better to take the weight off of the average American citizen so they can keep contributing to the economy, so they don't have to worry about their house getting foreclosed upon, they don't have to worry about their car getting repossessed, so they don't have to worry about whether they can pay their rent this week and whatnot. These are all important aspects. And you know what? This is a good thing. And you could say that this is just a Democratic ploy to get more votes. Well, guess what? It could very well be working for November. Finally, my last story for tonight. The affidavit was released today. Judge Reinhardt actually had the affidavit released. Now, mind you, the affidavit was heavily redacted, okay? So, I want everybody to understand that this is what the document reads. This is what the affidavit actually did say. The government is conducting a criminal investigation concerning the improper removal and storage of classified information in unauthorized spaces, as well as the unlawful concealment or removal of government records. The document reads. Legitimate. Because it's not the first time that the Trump house in Mar-a-Lago had to return documents to NARA, the National Archives Records Association. Not the first time they've had to do it. This is like the third time, actually. The second time, his own attorney said, oh, yeah, there's no more documents in there. We've given all these documents back. That's not true, though, apparently, it looks like. So what did they find? This is what they've included. The boxes found in the affidavit, or according to the affidavit, 15 boxes included 184 specific documents marked classified, 67 which were marked confidential, 92 marked secret, and 25 documents marked top secret. Of the 32 pages of the affidavit, 21 pages are almost totally or significantly blacked out. Now, there's a reason for this, because some of the information on there is, in fact, a risk to national security if it is leaked. Plus, there's the names of witnesses on there that they want to keep redacted for the time being because, you know what? Their security is important as well. There are people out there that swear the reason why these names are redacted and the reason why Trump wants this whole affidavit released is because he wants to find out who snitched on him. Because let's be honest, Trump and loyalty are not exactly his top aspects. He worries about who's loyal to him, but he doesn't care if he's loyal to them. He doesn't give a shit about them. It's that simple. Now, for those that are wondering, well, wait a second, why is this such a big deal? Didn't he declassify these documents? If he declassified these documents, where's the proof? He said there was a standing order, but yet nobody's been able to confirm this. John Bolton, his former national security advisor, never said anything sort. Said, I don't remember any such order. Former chief of staff, John Kelly, I don't remember such order. There are people within Trump's circle that say, I don't remember this standing order. So tell me, where is this standing order? What exactly was Trump saying that when he said, oh, I have a standing order indicating that I can declassify anything I want to? Is it true that the president can declassify anything? Sure. There also does, however, have to be a paper trail indicating this document was declassified on this date at this time. Let alone the fact that people have to be informed about these documents getting declassified. You can't just wave a magic wand and then declassify everything. It doesn't work like that. I'm sorry. You could try to say, oh, well, he can declassify anything. Okay, so why can't we see some of these documents then? If some of them have been declassified from classified to unclassified, can we see these documents then? I don't think so. It doesn't work like that. So Trump also lashed out at Judge Reinhardt, arguing that he should have recused himself from this matter because he had previously removed himself from another case involving the former president. And get this is hilarious. I laughed at this hysterically. The reason for that recusal was not clear, news outlets reported. But Trump claimed it was based on his animosity and hatred of your favorite president, me. How much of a narcissist do you have to be to say that you are everybody's favorite president? 81 million Americans disagree. And that number is going to keep climbing. You are the most divisive president in my lifetime. And to those that continue to just kiss your ass are just ignorant or unwilling to admit they were wrong, or they are just completely blind to the truth and unwilling to accept it. They are in denial. You're divisive. You're dishonest. One of the most corrupt presidents I have ever seen and ever heard from. You are an embarrassment. It's that simple. And this right here, hopefully, is going to be what forces you to never be able to run for office ever again because of what you did. Now, I'm not saying that this is all true, but this is what we're finding out. I don't want Trump anywhere near the White House, and I will definitely say that. Now, people may ask, oh, well, does that mean that you would vote for anybody? As far as I'm concerned, probably. I'm not saying if Hitler was to run against Donald Trump, well, then I'm just not going to vote this year because, honestly, I couldn't vote for either one of them, honestly. I'm just being perfectly honest about this. But this affidavit, okay, so many of these pages have to be redacted for the simple fact that there's a lot of national security secrets on here still that only certain eyes can see and have full access to, and the fact that there are people on here that really find themselves at risk. It's the same reason as to why you have things like the witness protection program. You don't really reveal their real name because then they might get tracked down the whole 9 yards. You also redact some people's names because for their own safety. You don't reveal the names just because somebody asks to, okay? Because then every mob boss or every criminal will be like, oh, where'd they get this information from? Oh, well, here's the informant right here. Here's the person that told us all about it. It's not how it works. It's atrocious that people would think that we should know the names of these people. That's going to come out in all due time. But right now, the investigation is still going on. And if the people want to come forward later on, that's entirely their business. But it would be a huge betrayal on our government if we blasted their names and basically doxed them. It's bad enough that we got doxing going on of FBI agents just because y'all are really mad that your god emperor got raided for something that he freaking did, for crying out loud. But this affidavit, okay, you got your affidavit released. So many of you are saying this is a joke. It's not a joke. You just don't understand how national security works. Even I don't 100% understand how national security works. But this is a very important issue. A former president took documents that he was not supposed to have from the White House and took them to his house in Florida. They weren't even in a properly secured room, from what I understand. They were just behind a deadbolt lock or whatnot. Not a deadbolt, but like a key and lock and key or whatnot. To store documents like these, they actually have to be in a secured area where it's marked classified, what have you. And once you enter things like SCIFs, you have to remove your cell phones or any recording devices. You can't even have an iPhone inside of these rooms. And I can't even begin to imagine how many times people might have broken that rule at Mar-a-Lago. I don't even want to take a stab in the dark how many times that might have been broken. But we need to understand something, folks. This is a very serious issue. A very, very serious issue. We have to take it seriously. Now, will this set a dangerous precedence? No, it's not a dangerous precedence. If the Republicans want to just open up a can of whoop ass and just want to rain fire and brimstone and start going after every case where this might have taken place, hey, go for it. I don't care. It does not bother me whatsoever. But you better have your facts right, because the facts right now here are pretty lock solid. This is not just some political witch hunt. It isn't. It's about what is right and what is wrong. Trump said that nobody is above the law. Well, guess what? That law applies to him too. And if the Republicans just want to be spiteful, and if they just say, well, guess what? You've just opened up Pandora's box. Well, guess what? It's open. You better have your facts in order. You better have your shit together, because if you don't have your shit together, it's going to blow back up in your face. A lot of you are just incapable of accepting the fact that this guy could very well have broken hundreds of federal laws, especially when it comes to the maintaining and the possession of classified, top secret, secret material. Some of you just need to wake up and just smell the coffee. The fact that he is continuously in denial about his guilt about this should just alarm bells should just be ringing in your head, because he keeps changing his story, keeps changing his excuse, and keeps changing what happened. It's that simple, folks. There's nothing more really for me to say about this. So in closing tonight, I want to take the time to thank everybody that listened to this on the live show or people that listen to this on the replay. I want to take the time to thank everybody that has continued to listen, that's been very loyal to me. I want to thank you so much. It's so much appreciated. I want everybody to understand something. November is upon us in 70 days. It's so important for you to study the issues, learn the issues, learn what each representative, congressperson, senator, somebody from your state, your district, what they stand for, what their positions are, and to make sure you go down and vote. Voting is an American right. You should not be compelled or forced to vote for people you don't want to vote for. Vote for people that closely align with your issues, the issues that you hold dear in your heart. Now, even if you and I disagree politically, and if you vote conservative, that's entirely up to you. But I'm simply telling you that there is a dangerous precedence right now going on. There are people that are willing to take away your rights. And I've said this time and time again. If you can justify taking rights from one group of people, you can justify taking those rights from anybody. It's that simple. So if you're willing to let them take away one demographic's rights, just think about what rights they'll come for next. Judge Clarence Thomas of the Supreme Court has already stated that maybe we should revisit cases like gay marriage. You don't think that's possible? It's definitely possible. The fact that that's even being discussed should really send shivers down your spine. It sends shivers down my spine. It may not affect me, but there are plenty of people that I know in my life that it will affect. This is why it's so important for you to get out there and vote this year. Not just say you're going to vote, but actually follow through with it. Even if you vote Mickey Mouse in this upcoming election, you're still participating. It's completely fair if you feel like the certain elected official you've got isn't exactly something that aligns with you closely. But I just want you to remember something. The people you vote for in this election are going to determine the House and the Senate. These are the people that are going to be writing our laws. They're going to be passing our laws. And some of these laws are going to be very, very important. They're going to make determinations on next Supreme Court justices, depending on if some leave or not. They're also going to make determinations on where budgeting and funding goes. They're also going to be the ones that, if they decide to launch investigations to somebody of the opposing party, that's going to determine this. Who do you want representing you in office? Who do you want representing you in D.C.? That's what you have to ask yourself. I've made my decision, and I'm following through with it 100% of the way. There are people that I never would have thought of voting for simply because, and I told myself I would never vote Democrat or Republican again. Well, times have changed. I'm voting blue across the board. People can say what they want about that. They could say, we finally knew it. But guess what? It's because the people on the right have me worried. They are going to start going after people's civil rights, whether you accept it or not. So we have got to fight back. That's why it's so important. That's why this voting season is so important. Get out there, canvass, learn the issues, volunteer. That's what we are doing. We are volunteering for the Tuscola County Democratic Party. And we're going to canvass, we're going to educate, and we're going to try to get people out there to vote. That's what's most important to us. And again, if you think that they're just going to stop at one set of rights, you're completely mistaken. We cannot allow this to happen. It is that simple. I want to take the time to once again thank everybody for listening on the replay. And once again, thank you so much for contributing to this podcast. If you haven't done so, please hit like, share, subscribe, do what you got to do. Show me some love. Let's get this podcast out there. Let's talk about beer. Let's talk about all these things. And just remember, yes, I am trying to get myself on many platforms as possible. So if you want me on your platform, if you want me on your podcast or on your Twitch stream, YouTube stream, what have you, send me an invite. Talk to me on Twitter. You know where to find me. Thank you so much for tuning in. And just remember, folks, stay vigilant, stay hydrated, and keep your beer glasses full. Take care and have a great weekend. This has been a podcast brought to you by the Alex Kirsch Project.